Welcome to the Armory. This is where men are forged, not comforted, where real conversations happen, no filters, no mask. We talk about things that most people avoid: pressures, purpose, discipline, failure, growth. Because in here, we don't stay the same. We sharpen each other. So if you're ready to level up, stay inside. This is the Armory Podcast. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Armory Podcast. I am your host, Luis. Today I have with me
Elias.
And then virtually we have my man.
Hey, yo, Carlos.
Hey, Carlos.
What's going on, everybody?
I also got a friend in the background. I think you can see it.
This is going to be a good episode because there's been too many issues for it to, not be a good one. Well, anyways, back to our regular scheduled program. Appreciate you guys joining in for another episode of the Armory Podcast. Today is going to be more of a topic-driven episode, so I'm excited to, talk about the topic at hand and get your guys' perspective, and then maybe at the end we'll, or not maybe, we will end with probably putting a little bit of scripture behind it, because at the end of the day, we should tie into what the word says about how we should handle things, right? I do want to pray right quick just to start off the episode, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, let's go.
All right, Father, I want to thank you for the opportunity again to get together with great men as we sharpen each other, Father, with your word, with your presence in the room, Father. Let our words be your word. Let us use this opportunity to help build the kingdom, build men, strong men, more presence in our church, not just in our church, Father, but all across your kingdom, Father. I ask that you hedge your protection over the equipment. Give us the insight that we need, Father. In my name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Cool, man. Well, before we get into it, I'd like to definitely, catch up. I know it's been about 2 weeks. Carlos has been a little more than 2 weeks. I know because your schedule's a little. Mr. Traveling Salesman over here. I know he's all over the place, but how's everything going, man? How's the sales?
Stuff going. It's busy. It's been it's been busy. Next week I travel again, but it's just trying to get a proposal out. It's been haywire, but it is what it is.
Yeah. How about you, man? How's everything going for you?
Everything's been going pretty good, man. No complaints. Just spent some time with my son. I get him every other weekend. I pick him up on Fridays after school.
Yeah.
And I keep him through Tuesdays. He went home today.
Okay.
Things are going pretty good, though.
Awesome.
Everything's been kind of moving along.
Yeah. That's what's up, man. Yeah, same here, man. You got funny enough, my wife, I've been working out in the garage mostly.
Yeah.
And then my wife, she wanted to join a particular kind of workout, like a group kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we had already kind of talked about budget-wise and all that, and then something happened where it wasn't the case. And then we ended up finding a gym in our area that for what she was going to pay for herself, we ended up both getting membership, and the kids, they have a place for the kids to be watched. So I have that as an option. So like today was the first time I ever worked out with her, like me and her one-on-one, which is nice. It was very, very different. So that was good.
Yeah.
They say couples that live together stay together. So we'll see if that,
Yeah.
how that affects it. But yeah, man, it's good.
Yeah. What area do you live in? What town?
We live right here near RDU Airport.
Okay.
We're like right in that area. We're like 12 minutes up the road.
Yeah. So I work out 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah.
At 6:15 at Nightdale Station. A couple of groups that meet
Yeah.
there, and we do like a boot camp style workout. I've been doing that for a couple of months now, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a beautiful park.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful park over there.
Yeah,
there's so many different things. We watched the Christmas parade.
Okay.
The last 2 years, we go over there and watch the Christmas parade. So it's pretty nice.
Busy, but it's a nice park.
Yeah, busy. I mean, all of that, east of Raleigh is just booming.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, now we got caught up. Let's get into the topic at hand. I felt like today I definitely want to talk about a topic that actually led me to Christ. This is how I was when I first experienced Jesus, was because of the baggage that he removed off of me. For me, like, I want to talk about this because I take it very seriously. But before we go into it, I want to maybe get y'all's perspective on when y'all hear the word I'm carrying, or the phrase I'm carrying baggage. Like, what is it for you guys? You know, maybe Elias, you go first, and then I'll switch to Carlos.
Right, sounds good. Initially, when I thought about the topic for today, I thought of baggage, but as far as from the perspective of relationship-wise, right? So, you know, like going into a new relationship, we say that a man or a woman carries baggage. And that could be, i.e., kids, trauma from past relationships. You know, the list could go on. I took a second thought and I thought about it again. And also, I watched the video that you sent. And we all carry, well, most of us, well, no, all of us, we carry a different type of baggage, different things that weigh you down. I think on Sunday, Pastor Holly spoke about it, right? And it's like, kind of like, what things are weighing you down?
Yeah.
And that could be a bunch of different things. It could be stress from work. It could be stress from your marriage or your relationship. It could be stress from parenting. Outside of stress, there are plenty of other things that we carry around as baggage. You know, negativity, negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think it could be kind of looked at both ways. But I think overall, it's more of a mental baggage.
Yeah.
We kind of carry, and it leads into like spiritual baggage.
Yeah. All right, Carlos, what you got for us, man?
Yeah, no, I think for me is the daily walk. To be honest with you, I think our daily walk is full of things that it puts on a lot of pressure, and this actually leads to one of the biggest things that is confusing and breaking people apart nowadays, and is anxiety and stress. I think we, us as Christians, we got to do a better job in speaking about how God's resurrection power actually relieves us from anxiety and this baggage.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen and it's a daily thing, and we just got to learn how to navigate through it. Not let it go.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to be there.
Right.
But how to navigate through it in a positive way.
Yeah, like, you know, don't let it have the power over you, like that you think it has over you.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's one of like the hardest things, right? Well, the most challenging things about the baggage that we carry. Through my journey, I'm learning that, you know, we're supposed to surrender it. We're supposed to give it to God. Mm-hmm. I find myself sometimes being so stuck in the whirlwind, or kind of being knee deep already.
Yeah.
Before you realizing that you're carrying it. Sometimes you could go days, or, you know, there could be a period of time that you're actually carrying this baggage before you realize the effect that it's taking on you. So how do you guys kind of deal with that? Like, do you think that, like, when things get heavy, do you think that are you in the mindset where you could surrender it like immediately, or like does it take you some time to kind of, you know, process or kind of live in it before you're able to surrender it? Or how do you do with surrendering it to
Well, I think if you asked me in a previous season, I would say that it's hard to just let it go, right? It's hard to just say whatever, because a lot of this stuff that we carry as baggage, it honestly comes from loved ones. Like, it's deep, because, you know, that's why I always say, like, the price of love is grief. You know what I mean? When I heard that, like, it just kind of clicked for me, and maybe that kind of helped. But when it comes from loved ones, you know, I could speak to like the Hispanic community, and maybe Carlos can chime in too. But, you know, when stuff happens, man, it's like, you know, Dominicans especially are very opinionated, you know. I mean, like I said, I go speak for us, right? Well, not all of us, but just in my experience. But we're so opinionated that they'll just say whatever is on their mind. And sometimes it could be they're just being honest.
Right.
So sometimes you have to be like, you know, well, they weren't really lying, but did they have to say it that way, you know? And then you fail to forgive them. And I think that's where the baggage starts, because it's, you know, you don't give the forgiveness. And for me, when I'm going through a situation, I'm like, okay, this is really frustrating me. They're really frustrating me. But what if God, you know, just stays frustrated at me and he doesn't give me grace?
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's the filter that I kind of look at it as, like, you know, this is going on and it is true, but I also have my own things that I should be doing, and what if God kind of gave up on me? So like that's how, and when I look at it from that lens, I'm like, Jesus already died on the cross for all the sins of the past and the future. So he's already forgiven me for those things. Why can't I do that for that person?
Right.
And a lot of stuff comes, even deeper, like I said, in that video that I shared, there's so many different situations that we go through, fights with friends, fights with siblings, parents, the disappointment, something that like parents are doing something for, like in the example, he missed the game-winning catch. He missed it. So the dad basically threw in his face, like, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. I'm doing all this for you, and you drop the ball.
Yeah.
At that moment, like that, you probably could have had the conversation later, or probably could have presented this right. And then when he was the kid, when he was pretending to be upset, he's like, hey, no, people are watching.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, it's like a whole nother dynamic. And then, but to your question, I look at the lens, if God has forgiven me, but I'm not God. So to your point, sometimes it takes a little bit, but I try to lead with that in mind. You know what? It irritated me. It made me upset. But you know what? I'm going to forgive. That doesn't mean that I'm going to allow myself to be put in those situations again.
Right.
But I definitely will forgive, because the forgiveness at the end of the day is for you. It's not for them. Whoever they are, they're going to go out the rest of their lives doing whatever it is that they're doing. And you over here not forgiving, frustrating yourself. It affects you mentally, physically, spiritually. I mean, it has so many effects on you.
Right.
So if you don't give that forgiveness, that's like what Pastor, Stephen's been talking about. The response is your responsibility. So,
how will you respond?
Yeah, I think Carlos.
There's a verse right here. Check this out. Let me see if I can do this right. You can't see it. Yeah. Anyways, it's in the Psalm. It says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." And we read it. It looks pretty, nice words, but like you guys are saying, it is not easy. It's not easy because when you do that, it goes hand in hand with trust.
Yeah.
And I'm a control freak. There's lots of us that are control freaks. And when it comes to just trust and let it go, wow, it's tough, right? So, and I think that's why being able to learn this, it's a skill that you learn. You're not born with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it comes through creating a mindset shift. It comes into creating a habit and learning, right? So you kind of have to retrain, like what the Apostle Paul says, right? About changing your minds, right?
Yeah.
To be able to understand and be able to give the stuff that is burdening you to God, so that then He can take over. And once you find that out, it's tough. But going back to what you guys were saying, how do I sometimes give it away, or how do I deal with it? It's in my experience, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn by having my health being checked out and pretty much go through a panic attack or an anxiety attack to learn how to say, you know what, I have a life beyond my job. I have a life beyond a lot of the things that stresses me out. I got a son, I got a wife, I got a family, and I have to learn how to just let things go. And through that process, I'm still learning, but more and more, even in my job, if I can control it, if I have a deadline that I have to hit and there's no way I'm going to hit it, you know what? Sometimes we can just move it. If you have that meeting, sometimes we stress out about a meeting that you got to host tomorrow. And you're like, oh, I got to host it. Well, guess what? You're the host. Right. Just move it.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I started to play around and work my way through letting things go.
Yeah, no, that's definitely key, because I think it's the things that we, for whatever reason, have fear of doing that will actually get us through whatever it is that we're stressed out. Like you just said, if I know I'm not going to hit this deadline, why one, not speak up, and two, hey, XYZ, because I'm kind of living in that world now, Carlos, with my job. where they have a certain amount of time. They expect me to get this review done. And if I don't get it done within that amount of time, they can come back and say something. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, if I haven't done it yet, I haven't done it yet.
Right.
And if there's deadlines, and somebody can get upset. I'm not saying that you should just be like okay with the chaos, but you still can take steps like, Carla said, hey, if I know I'm not going to hit it, let's have a conversation, move it in which makes a reasonable time, and then just move from there. Yeah. And then you remove, like you said, that anxiety, because that's what it is. It's the anxiety of the situation because it wasn't resolved. Because that's what it is. It's just things that were never, and in my opinion, it's things that were never resolved. You had a discussion with somebody, your brother or sister, cousin, whatever, and it was left on very one-sided, and you're hurt, but you never got to get the closure of what happened. Right. And I think that's a lot of what that baggage is. It's just you're not receiving closure that probably you're never going to get. But if you surrender it to God, God will comfort you.
Yeah. What came to mind was, and I can't remember it, I can't quote it right now, but it's like kind of letting go of the things that you can't control and, kind of focus on the things that you can. And like you said, there's a lot of anxiety and stress beyond our control, things that we can't change. So we kind of freak out about it. Yeah. Have those crash out moments where, we make things worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you said, Carlos, it is a process, right? It's a behavior that you have to learn. For me, I think also it's like learning how to process what you're going through and to identify kind of what you're going through as well.
Yeah.
You did say something else, Luis. You said that, what was it that brought you to Christ? Sharing that experience. Yeah.
So, I think I've shared a few times this situation with my dad, right? So losing my dad, which he was the glue that kind of kept the family together, to a certain extent. And when he was no longer here, we had to figure everything out. My uncle started a company. I went and talked to all the people because I knew all the owners of the companies my dad worked for. So I went and told him what happened. Hey, we opened up a new company. We just want to just roll into it. Everybody was cool. I don't know if it was just favor of my dad. They were just, no big deal. Well, then that kind of didn't work out. There's a lot of animosity came around because of financial stuff that happened. And then I had to kind of find my way. And then I remember telling myself, if I can just get 2 jobs, I don't have to think about none of this. And that's exactly what I did. That's why they say words have power. Because if you say it enough, it's in the Bible, life and death's in the power of the tongue. So if you say something long enough, you'll believe it. You program yourself. So that's what I said. I was like, if I just get 2 jobs, I'm make money, then this and that, and then I don't have to worry about this. Well, for 6 months, man, I was like a walking zombie. I worked at a call center, and then I worked at Walmart.
Okay. And
then I left the call center, went to work at a warehouse. I worked from 5 a.m. to 1:30 in the afternoon, and then the days I worked at Walmart, I'd go in at 5 and I get out at 11. So then it comes, and then I worked in Zebulon, which is 30 minutes away.
Wow.
So, 40 minutes away from where I live. So then I get off at 11:30. I get home, after 12. I have to be up at 4:30, or I have to be up at 4 to be there by 5. So I just became this walking zombie. And I was like, man, I cannot keep living like this. And then I was just carrying that frustration. I didn't get to grieve my dad properly because I was so focused on everybody else, making sure that they were okay. And then, I went, like I said, I went to a conference, and first time ever listening to worship music and setting kind of like our church's worship music. And then they showed that video, and then at the end of the video, when he just openly prayed to Jesus, it's like, can you take this? I surrender all this weight, because I don't know if you saw the video, Carlos, but at this point, at the end of the video, he has every bag was a different situation. The situation with the sibling, the situation with the parent, the situation with the friend and the girlfriend, and
right.
And then all these different things, and then he had a last bag was his sin. So now he's like, he has backpacks, suitcases, and everything. And then after he prayed, he let it go. And when he let it go, I just felt from the top of my head to my feet, man, I just felt like it was just relieved. And I was just watching the video. I didn't pray anything.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until later that we had an altar call, and I was like, I have to go up there. I was like, my leg was like twitching. I was like, I knew this is it. And then, you know, I just took it from there, man. And to be honest with you, it took from 2014 up until really when I started serving almost 2 years ago, where I was just a lukewarm Christian. And I'm you know, I'm working my way to not be that, and I'm very big strides, man. These last 2 months have been very revolutionary, not just for me, for my marriage, you know, with my kids. Like my kids, I'm seeing like the fruits, the seeds that have been sown in my kids' lives from us, from the church. You know, like I said, they celebrate being here. They enjoy being here. And I see that, and I'm like, only but God. And then now this new song, A Father's House, that they sung on Saturday, I was just crying like a little baby, because, like, you know, we're not perfect. So in our day-to-day, we're doing something every single day, even if we know it or not, that we shouldn't be doing. And then when I hear that song, basically inviting you to be in the presence of God, I mean, it just melts away that. It's a good reminder.
I didn't get to hear it, man.
It's such a good song.
I got a little bit late.
Such a great song, Father's House. I'm so excited for that song to come out.
Yeah.
But I did look up, basically, like, because we're talking about baggage, right? So I want to circle back, and we talked about a lot of great things. But basically, baggage, for those who don't really know what baggage is considered, it's considered unresolved weight that we carry from past experience, pains, traumas, mistakes, disappointments, or wounds that still influence how we live today, which is exactly what we've been talking about. It's
right.
about the situations. And the thing is, man, you know, our parents are our biggest foundation, right? We get a lot from our parents, and so many things we carry from things that we probably never got to talk to our parents about, or we're scared to talk to our parents about. Like, I remember, you know, a lot of things between my mom and my dad. I don't know, for whatever reason, I was always thrown in the middle. Like, it ain't got nothing to do with me, but I was always thrown in the middle. And like, I remember a few years ago, I can probably go back in my text messages, because I have it set to where I don't delete text messages. So like, I think I have like 5 gigs of just messages on my phone. But I remember, like, eventually, like, telling my mom, like, why'd you always put me in the middle of these arguments? I had to go through all these things, and then I had to lay that out, you know, and this is my mom, you know, so it's not exactly easy, because you don't, you know, I've always tried to be a respectful person, especially to my mom, but I wasn't being disrespectful. I was just laying it out for what it was. And then her response was, I'm sorry, I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't a strong enough person to stand up for you. You know, so like, you got to think about my perspective was they were throwing me in the middle. My mom's perspective was I was making sure your dad wasn't going to hurt you. And by her just going along with him, because there was a lot of times I had to apologize for things I didn't even do. Yeah. Wasn't even involved in. I had to come say, sorry. My dad shot 3 bullets at my feet, told me to get out the house, and I had to come apologize. And that was all because he cheated on my mom.
Something you had nothing to do with.
Nothing.
Wow.
You know? And then it you know, my mom told me I had to go apologize to him if I wanted to live there. And I did it because I was like, you know, I want to make sure I'm with my mom, you know? And, but if that's really how a lot of that baggage needs to happen, is going back and having a conversation. Now, there's certain things that, you know, you'll probably never get the closure from, you know, that one kid in middle school that said something, you don't even know what that guy's name is anymore. You know what I mean? But something simple like that could affect. That's what they're talking about. It's those traumas that you lived, you know, throughout your life that are just kind of shape you.
Yeah.
You know, how many people are so defensive in today's world because all their life, you know, they were always put down and they didn't have a voice. And now they have a voice. You know, they're just, you can say one thing and they immediately are very, very defensive about it. So there's a lot to it, man. It's not easy, something easy to overcome for sure.
Can I show you guys something?
Sure.
Let me see.
Fourth grade, I woke up in the middle of the night on a family vacation and an older kid was on top of me.
All right.
And that had massive implications on my life.
In what way?
I was fourth grade and I was sound asleep. So I was in a safe space, wake up to an older kid on top of me who was fondling me.
Okay. Can I unpack this for you a little bit?
Sure.
Are you open to it?
Oh, I'm so open to it. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the question I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
How did you feel when this happened?
I felt very confused and scared.
Confused and scared. Good enough. Who did you speak to about it?
No one.
Okay. If something like this happened to one of your daughters, and if they didn't talk to you, how would you explain that?
I'd feel, how would I explain it? I would explain it, and I'm about to go intellectual. I personally, as the mother, would feel heartbroken.
I understand how you'd feel, but really I'm not asking how you'd feel. I'm asking how you'd explain it. Why wasn't my daughter talking to me about feeling scared and confused and violated?
She didn't feel safe talking to me.
That's the trauma. The trauma began before that happened. Because if you had been able to talk to your parents and they would have said, this is awful, you must feel terrible, come here, let me hold you, and let's deal with the situation. So the trauma is not only in what happened, it's that you were so alone when it happened. And that aloneness was yours before this traumatic event ever occurred. As a matter of fact, abusers can tell with almost laser-like accuracy who's defended and protected and who's not, who can be victimized and who cannot. So that your primary traumatic event was not this event. Not that this wasn't traumatic. Of course it was hugely traumatic, but it became hugely traumatic because you were alone. And that sense of lack of safety and lack of protection, that's the primary traumatic situation.
Of course.
And there's the burden. There's the baggage.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love the way they unpacked it here because it goes back to what you were saying, right? You were saying that sometimes, our parents are, very, they influence us a lot, right?
Right.
And it's part of that relationship that in situations like these, that we ought to be able to talk to them about, that we have to be close because we feel vulnerable, we feel unprotected. We should be able to. And if we're not, we just add on this baggage. I don't know how much baggage this lady held for her entire life, right? But the inability of her to be able to share with her parents when she most needed it the most created that baggage for her entire life until I don't know how she coped with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys mind if I share something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
Kind of choked up trying to figure out if I was going to kind of open up and talk about it. So both of you guys mentioned that our parents kind of shape, that's kind of like the foundation, and there's a level of safety that we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
That gives us someone to talk to. My situation was a little rough. I lost my father when I was 6 years old, and I lost my mother when I was 11. So now in my 40s, I'm realizing that there's been baggage that I've carried for years. But for one, I didn't know where to go to talk to it. Really couldn't identify what I was going through. A lot of just confusing feelings. And they just kind of piled up over the course of years. So it took, like I said, for me to be an adult, to become an adult. But there's a lot of damage that was done, the whole time. And it made me into a person who, like, I had a conversation with someone yesterday. And she was kind of pointing out the fact that I don't go to, well, all right. So she was suggesting that that I kind of, it would be a good idea for me to create community. Right. So this way I could have, people to go to. And then I was kind of saying, like, I agree with that. Like, I think community is great. Since I've joined Elevation Church, it's been great. And I feel like I am, in the process of building that community. But I've spent all of my adulthood and most of my childhood figuring out things for myself. So those things are hard. And like I said, like, I think the hardest part was really being able to put my finger on what I was going through, like not being able to identify it as I was going through it. All kind of came normal for me. You know, it was just like, you know, making it through a day or making it through that season. But those situations are rough, especially when you don't have anyone to talk to. I couldn't talk to friends because at 6 and 11, not most kids are losing their parents.
Yeah.
Right? So no one.
You're not able to anybody to relate to.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of isolated.
Yeah.
And my sister, I have an older sister, and she raised me. But me and my sister are like 19 years apart. We are.
It's a whole lifetime, man.
Yeah, so we're brother and sister. We're siblings, but we're still not relatable on that level.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I spent a lifetime of not having nobody to talk to, but just not even knowing how to talk about or like really to identify what I was going through.
Yeah.
Carrying trauma, it's detrimental.
Oh yeah, no,
It's
it's
tough.
you know, it just, you know, we have but so much willpower, right?
Right.
We can carry on but so long before we break, man. You know, and you know, sometimes it's just like the old saying, you know, pressure, you know, either
Bust
makes
pipes.
diamonds, you know, or makes rubble, you know.
Yeah.
And for you, brother, it's what you went through, and I appreciate you sharing that because, you know, there's a lot of people that probably have similar stories. You know, I think of an auntie and Yaya that stay with us now, you know, the fact that, you know, they lost their mom and they have a father, but, you know, that's kind of not really in their lives, you know?
Yeah.
And just them bouncing around, you know, from place to place. It's a very common story. And I had both my parents.
Yeah.
But when that video, what hit me about that video, when he talked about the fact that you didn't feel comfortable talking to your parents, that's where it started. There's a point in time where that was the case. There was a point in time where my parents they cared more about the TV show they were watching than the fact that I had something going on. You know, so, and I'm not trying to compare our situations. I'm just saying that, like, even from my perspective, the parents aren't perfect. We're not perfect. We all mess up. And for your situation, man, like that's at such a young age, not having those like pillars in your life and having to figure it out, man. And for you to still now be in a position where now you're helping youth, like, you know, you had to go through that to be able to, I believe, and this is just my belief, whatever God has for you moving forward, that is a foundation of what you're going to be able to change, you know, and that doesn't mean that what you didn't go through sucked. But if we go back and we look at, you know, like I said, the last episode, David wouldn't have been able to get to Goliath
Right.
if he didn't go through the bear and the lion.
Correct.
You know, there's the faith, you know, component. And then here you are, man, joining Elevation Church a year ago and just radically changing your life from putting down alcohol or and working out, taking better care of yourself, making better decisions, finding community. You're doing what most men have such a hard challenge to do, and it's a decision.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it comes down to your choices, right? So, like, that's amazing that you are willing to share that.
Yeah.
Because that is tough. That would choke me out, dude. Like, I mean, just losing my dad, even to a day-to-day, you know, my dad wasn't perfect. But there's days I get choked up. There's days I want to be able to have one last phone call. Because, see, this is one of the things that I had to give to God. I had a regret for a long time because the last conversation I had with my dad wasn't a conversation. It was, he handed me some money. I asked him, what was that? And he said, that's for you. That's it.
Yeah.
My dad was gone the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I always was like, I felt like I could save him because when we found the time of death, I woke up at the exact same time.
Wow.
So when I found that out, you know, imagine I hear that and I'm like, I woke up, didn't know why, and then I went back to sleep. And I was like, man, maybe I could have done something. I had to let that go. I had to drop that baggage because that was eating me up, dude. Thinking that you had the ability to save somebody and then don't, and it doesn't happen. I mean, that's such a slippery slope because you put so much crazy amount of pressure on yourself. Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right. So keeping with the topic, it was a question that I wrote down from Sunday's sermon, and I didn't have a chance to answer it because I think that. Well, all right. So I'll just go ahead with the question. But
yeah.
This is for both of you guys. Luis, maybe you can answer first. But what baggage are you carrying around right now that you need to give to God?
That my life is not my life and is His, and I should just follow Him. Because that's a daily thing for me. And the reason I say that is because sometimes I pride myself on being the provider, but when I'm not providing, I let it beat myself up. There's been periods in my life since I've been married that I'm like, oh man, when am I going to get my wife a house? Or when am I going to get this? Or when am I going to get that? Why isn't this working? It's a bag that if I'm not careful, I can easily pick it up. So I have to give that to God on a daily, because if I don't, I'll boggle myself down and I'll fall back in my old ways of like putting everything else in front of God.
Right.
So like that's something that's why when you say carry, that's something that I have to make sure I don't carry on a day-to-day, because it's very daunting, man, because we want to provide, right? We want to give our wives the things that they want. Kids, same way, and like I've told you and I shared, like everything. Well, I was talking to Greg earlier. I was like, everything that I've been trying to do in my life, I've been doing it on my plan, not God's plan. So that's a big mental shift, and I had to put that down.
Yeah. What you got?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, at least what you said is a very true statement, but I think it encompasses also a whole bunch, because it encompasses every area of your life. Right now, the biggest burden that I have, believe it or not, is achieving success.
Yeah.
And you sent me a video this morning, Luis.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this video's for me.
No, it's for me too, dude. I mean, I sent it to you. I sent it to Elias. I sent it to Pastor Angel. I sent it to a few guys and to me, it wasn't like I had a motive. I was like, who in my spirit I felt like I should send that to, and then like you guys are, a core group of what we're doing now. So that's why I was like, man, I think this is really good.
But it really hurt me because obviously I got my job and everything. And I've always been very prideful of what I do at work. I've always tried to go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
But right now I'm also trying to build this other thing on the side, and I know it's for God. It has a ministry written all over it. But sometimes I get caught up in the weeds of the strategy of doing this and creating and this and that. But I have to always check myself that I'm not losing the real focus of it all, which is God. He's the driver. He's the one in the driver's seat. I'm just in the passenger. I'm just the instrument and
just the conduit.
Yeah. And you know what? I think us as men, we go through a lot of pressure because we've always been told you're the ones who have to succeed for your family. You're the one who has to provide. You're the one who has to this, who have to that. And if we go through trauma, you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You just carry it on.
Yeah.
And keep at it with everything you have. Even if anymore.
Yeah, man up in a 6 foot grave.
I'm kind of teaching my son to, man up. We're like, come on, man, come on.
Yeah. Hey, don't be a punk. No.
But you have to. I mean, we got to be rough. We got to be rough as men. We got to be able to endure. I get it. But at the same time, we also got to learn how to be vulnerable and understand that you're not alone.
Yeah.
When you said that, talking about what we were just talking about, it reminded me. There's a guy named I'm pretty sure his name is Jason Wilson. He has a martial arts program, I think, in Detroit. I want to say it's Detroit. And he uses martial arts to bring up a lot of kids, especially a lot of kids in the black community. And he said something the other day. There's this kid, he was kind of throwing punches and stuff, and he started to cry. And then he was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Why are you upset?" And he's like, "I don't want to be mean." And then he's like, "I don't want to be mean. I want to be nice." And then he looked at him and he said, "Don't be a nice man, be a good man." And when he said that, man, I've been pondering that question. I've been pondering that, not the question, but I've been asking myself that, but I've been pondering what he said. And I'm like, man, we all want to be nice. We all want to be respectful. we don't want to be considered mean, but at the same time, if we look at stories in the Bible, there were men that had to do things that nice men don't do. So is it that we should try to be good men, not just nice men? And what does that mean? So that's something that I've been pondering for a while, for especially these last few weeks.
Well, let's look at the definition. I just pulled up the definition for the word nice: pleasant, agreeable, satisfactory. I could do without being nice. Good. Let's see, what's the definition of good? To be desired or approved of, having the qualities required for a particular role. So I'd rather be a good man than a nice man.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't always agree to everything. You know what I mean? How many times? I mean, you have to be able to say no. And it's like they said at the Equip Night, no is a complete sentence. It's a complete statement.
2 letters.
So, 2 letters is very powerful, so.
Yeah, because I guess nice would be, like you said, agreeable. So you could agree with the wrong thing. Good, you have a standard, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of like, you stand for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would rather be a good man.
Yeah. We'll have to bring that one back. We'll get some time to
That's a good one, though.
Think about, man, because I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, man. But I mean, I think we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. We touched on the fact that these traumas that we carry, from, not having your parents at such a young age and going through things with my parents, just like everybody else goes through their parents, and even just the stresses of, a very demanding job. And, sometimes how that can be first. We talked about a few weeks ago how things we hide behind. And you said that, the job is one of the things that sometimes you can get so caught up. Oh, I can't do XYZ because I got to focus on work. And even myself too, And then in that video, it talked about that. You put so much emphasis on the work you're trying to do that you don't spend time with God. You don't take care of yourself. You put yourself on the back burner. And then you put the things that are important on the back burner. So like that's why that video was really impactful today, because I felt like it was talking to me too, because it should be priorities, God, your wife, your family, and everything else. But sometimes everything else is just supersedes it because we just get so caught up in the moment, because we want that thing to work. I was talking to my wife about that. Anytime that we've been working on something like a business, we want the business to replace the job because we want to work in the business, right? That's what we want to do. But the problem is that takes time, it takes work. And if you give up on the first signs of, oh, this isn't going to work, you're never going to see what it's going to be. You put so much emphasis, like, she had, Myron Golden says you have to have assets. And he has multiple assets that he's created over time that have given him the lifestyle he has now. He wrote a book once, a long time ago, and, he's living off of that now. But if he never sat down and wrote the book, like, what do you do then? But
there was another interesting thing about the video that we was watching. Remember, I told you I had to watch it. I watched it a couple of times because I felt it was a very deep kind of situation to be put in, right? I think that I'll talk for myself. I think sometimes I'm doing what I consider right. Just because you're doing the right thing doesn't mean it's for God.
Right.
I did post that, I put that video out. One person replied. I just want to read his reply if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says, if God is not involved in what you're doing and you're doing things and forcing things because of your own strength, you will 1,000% be burnt out. Have stress, anxiety, which back to the devotional that we read earlier, you shouldn't be anxious about anything but through prayer and supplication, bring it to God. And we need to make sure that, and this is the last line that I think is the best thing for me. It says, and we need to make sure that we are not making plans to make ourselves bigger, like not to, puff ourselves up. That could be like a better car or a house, especially when God is not involved. And I think for me that, like I said, like I've thought about it from a few different angles, but there are times when I thought of it like, as long as you're not doing anything illegal, and as long as you're doing something for your family,
Like you put a very small little filter in front of it to make it, to justify it, right?
Because it's like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like you said, like how many times have we poured ourselves into work? But is God really in the center of that?
Yeah.
I think sometimes for me, like that's kind of questionable, right? Because it's like, now do you break it down and say like, well, what company do I work for? Like what's really driving behind it? But it's a really deep scenario.
I think sometimes we have to wait for God to show the assignment and let his timing dictate when you move on to the next one.
Yeah.
You know, because they always say God puts you in a situation for a reason. What that reason is, sometimes we don't know. And sometimes we don't find out till years later. You know, sometimes it could be quick. Sometimes you were there to just say one thing that somebody needed to hear. And then, you know what, you're on your way. But sometimes it's working on you, showing you that maybe this avenue that you thought was perfect isn't the way to go. You know, but you have to sit in that sometimes so God can work on you. Because sometimes you need to be stationary. Because if we're always moving from left to right, how can God work on you if you're always running around like a headless chicken?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, man, that's I think that's the thing is, you know, we have an assignment. We just don't know the date when it ends. You know? So I think that's why I have to look at it. It's like, okay, you know, because people move on. Some people stay there for 20 years. Some people are there for a short period of time, you know, and that's on his time.
I think the most important thing is to look for God in everything that we do. If God is the center of your life, you know, he'll lead you to making decisions that you should make.
The Holy Spirit should be your filter on what you do. But the thing is, we don't converse with them. We don't say, hey, Holy Spirit, how, you know, show me like through this thing. Is this exactly what you want? You know, and if you just let it naturally happen, you know, it is what it is. You know, things are going to reveal themselves. But if you're so focused on pushing it through, like you're talking about, you know, you'll never really understand because you're so infatuated on that one thing. But I do like to point out at the end of that video, he said one thing as he walked away. He said, go get your dopamine. But the dopamine needs to be God.
Yeah.
Because we can get dopamine from everything else. We can get it from anything. Anything that makes you feel good releases dopamine. Because, like we're talking about, we don't know God's timing. We don't know when the dopamine's going to hit. But you have to put faith in that timing. Yeah. This has been good, man. I think we definitely talked about baggage and even some of the things that are self-inflicted bags we pick up, you know, through work and different things. But I do want to cover, you know, just go over a few Bible verses that I researched up to kind of, when it comes to, you know, baggage, you know, when it comes to our burdens, Pastor Holly did a fantastic job. She read Matthew 11, 28 through 30, but I'm just going to do 28, where it says, come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. The funny thing about that verse, I was stressed out and going through a moment, and I was delivering appliances at the time, and the room was dark, but they had a little night light. Next to the night light was the Bible. The night light, the verse that they had their little kind of, that they had highlighted was that verse.
Wow.
And when I saw that, my literally, again, baggage dropped. And the thing is, I don't even remember what I was stressed about. I don't remember what I was stressed about, but I remember the moment that I read the verse that made me realize, like, oh, okay. You know, it's not, you know, whatever I'm carrying, you know, I'm going to give it to God because his burden is, you know, is light. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. I know Pastor Holly talked a lot about and used that verse this past weekend. Letting go of the weight. You know, Hebrews 12:1. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that it is so easily entangles. You know, for me, man, you know, one of the things that I have to make sure I'm careful with is, you know, temptation, lust. You know, we're still, at the end of the day, we're still human. We're still human at the core of everything. You know, we're still men, still women. So, and I think for the longest time, I always thought that, like, when it came to temptation, it was always like, oh, I have to just have enough faith in God and the temptation is going to go away. But it's not about you beating the temptation. It's about you turning from the temptation and turning towards God and God working on you. So you fight he fights that battle for you, and you just learn to, learn. And the thing is, just how they also say in the Equip Night, sometimes you need a practical tool, not a spiritual tool. Look at yourself, analyze yourself. If you're doing something, if you like to drink, right? Probably it'd be a good idea that you don't have any adult drinks in your house. You know what I mean?
Don't bring the temptation.
Yeah, if you know that your boys do that or they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, you might have to analyze how important that relationship is to you, because even though you don't want to do that anymore, but you're subjecting yourself to somebody else, now it's secondhand. Now you have that little droplet. Oh man, you know what? I could just do it once. So, yeah, man. But I think when it comes to baggage, those two right there, it's what it comes down to. It's that you have to let it go. That's the common theme. You have to let go of what it is that is hindering you. And like Carlos said, you're not ever going to forget about it. It's always going to be there. That you live through that experience. So, but you can't let that experience, that door that closed a long time ago, that you can't stay there and live there. I forget what the pastor was, but a few years ago, there was a pastor that was a guest pastor. I'd have to go back and look. But he had a whole sermon on doors. And he just talked about how, doors open and they close. But when doors are closed, that doesn't mean you can't go to another door. Sometimes we get so fixed on the door because that closed. We're just hoping that it opens.
Yeah.
But there's other doors. So that's a big thing that I think we also get caught on. Why it's hard for us to even let go of baggage, because we're still living in a past relationship that person's already moved on, or in a past whatever, living in a time from, or recollect. You're always so stuck on the past that it's hard for you to look to the future. That's why I say that's why the windshield is always bigger than the rearview mirror, right? Because you got to see what's ahead of you, not what's behind you. So
there was another thought that just came to mind for me. And I can't remember if this was something I heard in Bible literacy or if it was a sermon that I heard, but it's about kind of letting go, right? Like you said, we're sinners, right? So some people struggle with lust. Like I said, for me, I used to struggle with alcohol. Sometimes it's not easy to kind of let go of things, right? One thing that we could do that could help us is working on our relationship with God. The closer we get to God, the less we'll have an appetite for some of the other things that we're trying to let go of.
Right.
So it's kind of like working on one, and as a bonus, you kind of get rid of the others. You know what I'm saying? Without just trying to focus on, I'm not going to do this anymore. But if you could focus your energy on, building your,
you have to replace it with something.
Yeah.
You can't just oh, I'm not going to do this and then I'm good. You have to find something that you can replace whatever that is for you. Because, whatever you feed grows, whatever you starve dies.
Correct.
That kind of mindset. So that's why a lot of people, when they want to quit cigarettes, they chew gum.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, well, I get something, but it's not the cigarette. But they're still kind of doing the nervous tick, but at least they're replacing it with a different outlet. So that's what it kind of comes down to, is you have to replace whatever it is that you're going through, that you're trying to turn from. You have to turn to something else.
Yes and no, because sometimes you could give up one habit for another.
Right. No, you do have to, you definitely have to be careful. Don't go from beer to liquor. That's not, that's not what I'm saying. It's not because they'll justify it. Oh, it's not as bad. Yeah. This is not, I went from drinking this to drinking hard cider because, it's not beer, whatever, but you are right. You do have to be careful what it is that you're turning to, but I think the premise of turning it to something else.
Yeah.
But something that,
sustainable.
For me, sometimes for me, I've been thinking, I was like, well, if I ever catch a temptation that I know I shouldn't be tying into, change it for prayer. Tying into, so, hey, I'm going to pray right now, or I'm going to read a Bible verse. It's like, so you're turning it to something that's helping the relationship with God, and it's growing you.
Yeah.
That we could potentially do. So cool, man. Well, I think we've accomplished our mission, man. Guys, if you are, if you're watching this and you have baggage, it's something that, it may sound easier than it is, but it's something that you choose to carry. And it is a decision. It is a daily decision. Carlos talked about it earlier. It doesn't go away. But choosing to give it to God, even if it's a daily battle, we're called to carry our cross daily. So that could be part of your daily cross, that you have to give up the thing every single day. And as God is working on us, that just becomes easier and easier. As always, if you guys are struggling with trauma or anxiety, please reach out. There's a lot of resources. At the end of this video, there will be a QR code. Scan the QR code. It will take you to the suicide prevention hotline. You guys can reach out to them. Find a church, find a community like you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. These things are important. We're not meant to have life or go through life by ourselves. That's not how we were intended and how we were designed. We were designed to have a relationship with God so we can have a relationship. Just how God wants to have a relationship with us, we can also have relationships with our other, our community. You just have to be careful. You just have to be careful where you tie into. Just because, again, we have a lot of people that we consider friends, but that word is used very loosely. They can be your friends, but they can have a lot of bad habits. You have to be honest and set boundaries. So, which might be another good episode to do in the future, talking about boundaries, because that's
boundaries.
Boundaries are they talked about boundaries and barriers. So that's going to be a future episode for sure. Elias, Carlos, again, thank you for spending your afternoon with me and talking about these things. I hope that this conversation can help a lot of people overcome their concerns or their fears with their baggage. And we pray that they leave it at the altar and God can work on them.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
God bless y'all.
All right, buddy. Well, that's all we have, guys. Before you go, remember this. This is the daily battle. And every single day you have to suit up. Not in your own strength, but knowing that God is on your side. You're not alone in this. We're in it with you. We love you. If you're looking for tools, resources, or a way to stay sharp, scan the QR code on the screen. Stay disciplined. Stay focused. Stay faithful. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take a stand against the devil's schemes. Ephesians 6:11. God bless.